So, a very brief introduction to Luno's Exchange. By now, you've probably seen either on Luno's app or on their website that they have this very easy to use instant buy option. If I go to the Android app, select buy Bitcoin with rands, I can enter an amount of Bitcoin I want to buy, so 0.5. I get a price, 96,302 Rand, and I can go through and make that purchase instantly. But what you might also have seen is Luno has an exchange, which is a very different experience from using this instant buy option. So if I open up the exchange on Luno's website, I get this screen with a lot of red and green numbers and lines on it. So before getting into the basics of this exchange, it's worth making a point at the outset, and that is that Luno, as an exchange, always facilitates transactions between buyers and sellers. Luno doesn't hold its own reservoir of Bitcoin that it sells to you when you want to buy Bitcoin, and it doesn't have its own vault of rands that it uses to buy Bitcoin from you when you want to sell. All Luno does, whether you're using the instant buy or this exchange, is to facilitate transactions between buyers and sellers. So, seeing as how we now know that an exchange consists of people wanting to buy and sell, in this case Bitcoin, we can start looking at the exchange. Starting on the left, we have an order book. We have in red people wanting to sell Bitcoin, and in green, people wanting to buy Bitcoin. The sellers, if you look at the most recent price at the bottom here, want to sell their Bitcoin at a higher price than what the people buying Bitcoin want to buy Bitcoin for, which makes sense. If you're selling something, you want to get as much for it as possible, and if you're buying something, you want to pay as little for it as possible. So at the top in red, we've got sellers, and at the bottom in green, we have people wanting to buy Bitcoin. At the top is the lowest bid. This person's saying, look, I am happy to pay 195,000 Rand for this amount of Bitcoin. And you can scroll down this list and see that as it goes down, people are willing to pay less and less for Bitcoin. So the price of Bitcoin has to drop very drastically for these orders down below, and it keeps on jumping up. It's difficult to see those prices, but you can get a quick glimpse of 162,000 Rand per Bitcoin price, which is extremely low. But nonetheless, buyers in green and sellers in red are able to put orders into this order book and wait for them to be fulfilled. Now, the way in which orders are put into the order book, either an order to sell or an order to buy, is through this place order section over here. So if I don't have Bitcoin and I want to buy Bitcoin, I could say, right, let's go 0.5 Bitcoin. And right now I've got two choices. If I'm in a rush or I want Bitcoin right now, I can select the current selling price, which is 169,300. And if I was signed in, there would be a buy button here. I'd click it, and that trade would go through immediately, and I would buy at the current selling price. However, the other option I have is to say, well, this price is a little bit too expensive for me. I'd like to buy Bitcoin at a cheaper price. So I could say, I want to buy Bitcoin at 180,000 Rand. Again, if I was signed in, I'd click buy, and what would happen is this order for 0.5 Bitcoin at 180,000 Rand would go into the order book somewhere down here along with the other 180,000s. And that order would sit in the order book until the price of Bitcoin fell sufficiently that somebody was willing to sell me their Bitcoin at 180,000 Rand. Alternatively, I could already have zero point 0.5 Bitcoin and now I want to sell it. So I could go into the sell tab. Just as before, if I'm in a rush or I just want to sell my Bitcoin immediately, I can enter the amount of Bitcoin I want to sell and I can sell it at the current price somebody's willing to pay for it. So I can select that top price, which is the buyer. I can click buy or sell, and that sell will go through immediately to the current price that somebody's willing to pay for it. Alternatively, I could decide that the current selling price is a little bit too low and I'd like to make a bit more profit on this trade. So I could sell it for 200,000 Rand. I could click sell, and what's going to happen then is that this sell order will go into this order book. And if we scroll up a little bit more here, we can begin to see it jumps back, but you can see that there are some orders for 200,000 and even way more than that. So I can sell 0.5 Bitcoin for 200,000 Rand. It goes into the order book and it waits for the price of Bitcoin this time to rise sufficiently such that some buyer is willing to pay 200,000 Rand for my 0.5 Bitcoin. So when you come onto this exchange or any such cryptocurrency exchange and you want to buy or sell some asset like Bitcoin, you've got two options. You can either come in and buy or sell at the current asking price, or you can place an order into the order book and wait for those orders to be filled. Next on the exchange, we have this chart, which can be viewed in different time periods, 1 day, 2 weeks, 6 months, or whatever you select at the top here. And all this chart really is a history of what the price was doing at a certain point. And you can think of these green candles as the price increasing and the red candles as the price decreasing. And in a sense, this chart isn't just a history of what the price of Bitcoin was doing. It's also a history of human psychology. At this point in time, people collectively decided to put a lot of money into Bitcoin. People bought into the hype, heard about Bitcoin, joined an exchange, put even more money in, and the price rose. And over this period of time, the price continued to increase. And further on in time, at this point, collectively, people decided to sell a lot of Bitcoin. And we had a drastic decrease in price. So these charts aren't just a record of what happened in the past in terms of Bitcoin price. It's also a record of what people collectively decided to do. And these charts are a nice way to get a big picture of what the price was doing. And one can also use this information to make predictions or inferences about what the price might do in the future. And finally, on the right-hand side, we have recent trades. And all these are people coming into the markets and either buying or selling at the current asking price. All these are orders in the order book currently being fulfilled. So if I had an order in the order book for this 214,000 and someone came in and bought it, that trade would be listed here. So we started this video by looking at Luno's instant buy option, and you might be wondering what the difference is between the instant buy and the exchange. So looking at the instant buy again, if I go buy Bitcoin, and let's just put in 1 Bitcoin and look at the price on instant buy, it's almost 216,000 Rand. Looking at the exchange again, that same price is the current asking price for this person wanting to sell Bitcoin. It becomes a little bit clearer to see that the instant buy and the exchange are exactly the same thing. When I log onto the Luno app and I go buy Bitcoin and I select an amount, all Luno is doing behind the scenes is looking what the current selling price is on the exchange and giving me that number over here. I then say, okay, I accept that price, I'm willing to pay that amount for it. I go accept, and behind the scenes, Luno comes onto the exchange and they say to the seller, we found you a buyer, and they facilitate that transaction. And again, that takes us back to the important point about Luno or any other exchange out there, and that is that all their purpose is to facilitate transactions between buyers and sellers. They don't hold their own Bitcoin that they sell to you, and they don't hold their own vault of rands that they use to buy your Bitcoin from you when you want to sell. All they do is facilitate transactions between buyers and sellers. You can either buy using the instant buy or coming onto the exchange and click in buy now or sell now, or you can decide on a price you want to buy or sell at and put that order into the order book and wait for someone to come and fill that order.